So when things were at their worst, what was your biggest level of debt?
Over 100 and...
Just over 100,000.
About 120,000.
We don't know exactly.
It's not something you
We didn't know.
really like to look into that much detail. I think most people are the same. They avoid looking at their debt collection letters and things like that.
They had 13 credit cards, 4 loans, car finance, and an overdraft.
Half of it was living expenses and half of it was the extras, the luxuries, the nicer things that ordinarily you couldn't afford unless you borrowed that money.
But their business failed, and they began to miss their monthly repayments. It was then Basil and Amanda had an idea. They got hold of a copy of this, the Consumer Credit Act, and began trawling through it page by page. It lays out the rules for every purchase we make on credit in the UK, apart from our homes. Armed with this, they began looking for mistakes their creditors may have made in the paperwork, and then they took on their first lender.
I put together a bit of a letter to HSBC, thought I had everything correct, sent it off, then they wrote back after a few months and said, we're prepared to write the balance off.
How much have you managed to avoid paying back?
That was about £10,000 on a
So you
HSBC
thought,
credit
we're onto
card.
something here. HSBC said they wrote off the debt because they'd lost the original documents. Sir Roy Good is an eminent lawyer who knows the Act better than most. He was instrumental in its creation more than 30 years ago.
The rules relating to the formation of agreements are extremely complex. It is very easy for a creditor to make a little slip. Indeed, in some respects, some of the rules are not very clear. So any slip that is made entitles the consumer to refuse to pay unless the court gives leave to enforce the agreement.
Among the potential slips the Rankines were looking for, had the agreement been signed? Was the APR accurate and in the right place? Did the creditor actually have a copy of the agreement at all? The tactics began to pay off.
Some would say they couldn't find a copy of the agreement, so they're prepared to write it off. Others would just say, prepared to write it off without giving explanation. They won't commit themselves and say, this is the point that was wrong.
There's reason for Basil and Amanda Rankine from Rugeley to celebrate. Basil successfully challenged 6 banks over his personal...
By now, their creditors had written off £37,000. And they weren't alone. Specialist legal firms were winning with similar tactics. So out of the £120,000 that you've borrowed, how much of that have you managed to get away with?
Get away with it. That's a nice word. Part of it is written off by the lender. That means that there is no debt on their books, so that money's not owed. And part of it is the lender cannot take any further steps to recoup that money from us.
So how much have you avoided? Just give us a figure.
About 100,000.
You've avoided paying 100,000 out of 120,000.
Well, we used our legal rights.
But why are you so special and different from everybody else that you're allowed to take money off an institution and not pay it back?
Because we've studied it.
If the law says that if I have the legal right to avoid payment, then that's my option.